minute. New hair, new me. Ah. More like new hair, same me. Not too much on me. Not too much on me. I do my own hair, so every part, everything ain't perfect. But I save money, let me tell you that. And develop my skills. My daughter gonna be good, bro. We gonna be good, cause she gonna have a mom that knows what she's doing. Kind of. I just ate some fried fish. That junk slap. I did my makeup again. You see that? I'm missing my other piercing. Hold on.
It's a butterfly.
But look, y'all, look. I added beads. What's been new with me? I've been listening to that SZA album. Think about SZA though. Control album came out, 2017. I just freshly out of high school. Let's just say she got me through a couple things. Her album, her music. Her album is for sexy sad girls. And I, for one, identify as a sexy sad girl. But this album was good too, but it didn't hit because I ain't depressed or nothing, y'all. I just want to toot my own horn real quick, bro. Let me just share a little personal, because, you know, we're family here, right? I was a year single. Yeah, because for a while, like, I made it a year single. And then a year celibate. You know what I'm saying? Like, people can't do that. And then I'm a year sober. And then on New Year's, I'll be a year in Texas. We're reaching a lot of year marks. Can we clap it up? You know. And next year, I'll be a year without depression and anxiety and all that. I'll be a year without that too. So giving that, the whole point I'm making is that SZA's album is great and all, but I couldn't really relate to it because I ain't nothing to relate to in my current life because I've been so good. You know what I'm saying? But did it make me think of old things? Yeah. Hey y'all, it is your favorite baby face doll, Money, coming back at you with another video. What's good, Sunflower Game? I did a lot of chit chat. I know it's been a minute. It's always gonna be a minute. It's always gonna be a minute with me, but you're gonna keep coming back because you love me and I love you, and we have that type of relationship, bro. I could be toxic and inconsistent as all I want, and you still gonna be here. That's our relationship. But we're going back to our OG starter of cartoon conspiracy theory, SpongeBob himself. We are going to go back to the homie Alex Bale. Hey, dude. And react to another conspiracy theory. This one I'm excited for. It has 16 million views, so you know that junk gonna hit. It's gonna bang. It's gonna blow our minds. It's about 30 minutes, y'all. Y'all make sure you eat, because it's gonna be a rough ride, and I'm pretty sure this one about to bang, okay? Oh my god, why am I talking like that, bro? Anyways, dude, answer quickly. You got 5 seconds. 3 seconds, in fact. Smash or pass, Miss Puff. 1, 2, 3. You know what? I'm gonna let you know. She might be like a cool little vibe. I'm not gonna make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, and turn that bell so you know when I post. Because we're coming back with the SpongeBob OG. We're coming back with the cartoon conspiracy theory. I know y'all like these. I love them too. So you best go get into it, bro. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on this video. Alright, y'all, here we are. SpongeBob conspiracy number 3, the Miss Puff theory. Are we ready, bro? It's about 30 minutes and 15 seconds, so you know it's a hefty one. Oh, you guys, I wanted to show you real quick, bro. I started dreads. I don't know if you can see it. I started some dreads. I got 2. I started dreading. They're a month old, y'all. This is Momo. And this is Mimi. Okay. I just wanted to share that. I forgot to share it earlier. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started.
This is not Mrs. Puff. You may think she's just SpongeBob's boating teacher, but you'd be very, very wrong. For years, she's been running from her dark and mysterious past, but it's finally caught up to her. And behind it all is a mastermind who's been secretly controlling her life and psychologically torturing her. If you guys thought my last 2 theories were mind-blowing, get ready for my biggest conspiracy yet. Woo! This is the Mrs. Puff theory.
Oh, I'm excited!
I gotta start off by saying, wow, the reaction to my last 2 SpongeBob theories has been insane.
How does she know? How does she know?
Squilliam, you lying, deceiving. Who is that head
handsome young devil.
I'm glad you guys are enjoying my ridiculously deep dives into this show. I mean, I have to watch so much SpongeBob and read so much of the Wikipedia to put these theories together, but it's worth it because the writers actually take the time to set these things up. Now, a lot of people have been asking, Alex, how do you come up with these crazy conspiracy theories? Well, I always start these theories by looking for the moments in the show that seem to be implying more than they're letting on. Like I've said before, SpongeBob is a weird show with lots of abstract.
Can we like talk about how they had the smack the booty train, bro? And people were going in there? And then y'all remember the clip where Squidward show up and said, "Is this where the line starts?" Squidward is a freak, bro. I'm about to put the clip in, bro.
Hey, SpongeBob! You gotta try this, dude! We finally got enough people for a 7-mile spanking machine! Ouch! 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 Ouch!
Next! Is this where the line starts?
That man is a freak. That man try to act like he all sophisticated, but I know that bro is like, it's just a BDSM type stuff, bro. Anyways, sorry.
Humor, but I can usually understand the intent the writers had behind a weird joke. But then there's stuff like this.
I hope I still remember how to do this. Yeah.
And it's so confusing and weird that it feels like the writers are trying to imply something beyond just weirdness for the sake of comedy. And nowhere in the show is there more of these moments than with Mrs. Puff. And once I started looking into it, it led me down the deepest rabbit hole I've ever seen from this show. So, let's begin. Uh-oh, looks like I'm getting hacked by a hacker. I knew this would happen if I got too close to the truth. Well, it's a good thing this video is sponsored by NordVPN. If you're watching this video, then you're on the internet, which means at any moment you could be hacked by a cyber criminal. Now, without further ado, let's begin this.
I didn't want to watch the ad, Alex. I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure it was really well crafted. And I'm just letting you know I didn't want to watch it. I apologize. I still love your content nevertheless, and I can't wait to catch up. But I want to apologize. I don't do it. I should have watched it because I'm probably going to have to do those one day, and I'm going to be upset if people skip. Look, I'm sorry, okay? Miss Puff's Dark Past.
Mrs. Puff is a boating school teacher in Bikini Bottom. She's passed all of her students except for one, SpongeBob Squarepants. He's taken her driver's test hundreds of times and he always ends up
If you guys are a member of the Easy Gang, like y'all Easy Gang, I'm Easy Gang for life, right? You know Rico from Some Bros, which is their group, right? Rico is SpongeBob because Rico does not have his driver's license, and I know it's funny, but this man Rico does not have his driver's license. He can't drive, bro. Have you guys seen his driving simulator, bro? That man cannot drive. It's so funny.
Open road, man. Let me use my turn signals. Yo, yo, yo! Bruh, I don't know what just happened right there.
So every time I see SpongeBob can't driving or whatever, I always think of Rico. If Rico ever sees this, I love you, Rico, man. Rico, S tier, bro. S tier thief, bro. Come on.
Failing it and causing destruction and chaos that usually ends up with Mrs. Puff going to jail, despite it not really being her fault. We also know that she was once married, but her husband was killed by fishermen.
That's my driving teacher, Mrs. Puff.
Mrs. Puff? Oh, she's married.
Oh no, Mr. Krabs, she's single.
Then what happened to Mr. Puff?
She doesn't like to talk about it.
Throughout the show, there are moments like this that seem to be hinting at her having a dark, mysterious past. And in Season 2, Episode 10, No Free Rides, we get the biggest clue about who Mrs. Puff really is. After SpongeBob fails the driving test yet again, Mrs. Puff has just had it with him and ends up just giving up and giving him his license even though he never really passed. She quickly realizes that this is a horrible idea and he'll probably end up destroying the entire town.
Yo, so much. That is a dark scene. Cause look at his face. Like, bro was I'm sorry. It was dark.
Destruction. This reporter asks, why? Local consensus places the blame on this negligent, selfish driving instructor who...
Remember this clip, because it's going to be very important later on. And then she says this insanely revealing line.
What have I done? Everyone will know that I let him slide through school. I'll have to move to a new city, start a new boating school with a new name.
Right.
No, not again.
No, not again.
Not
Come
again?
on, it's like they're just begging someone to make a theory about this.
What are you?
So we now know.
What? Like, okay, yeah. What are you talking about? Because when I was a kid, I was like, not again. She said, new name. So your name not even Mrs. Puff?
Mrs. Puff was originally from a different town, she used to own a different boating school, and Mrs. Puff isn't even her real name. There's something in her past that she ran away from. Now, there's been some debate over whether she's actually referring to a new name for herself or for her boating school, but I do think she's talking about her own name, because if she's trying to run away from something in her past, she wouldn't start a new boating school with her real name in the title. Now, when she says again, I don't think she's just referring to starting a new life.
Everyone will know that I let him slide through school. Not again.
I think at her previous boating school, she had a terrible student just like SpongeBob who she prematurely gave a license to, and it led to something so terrible happening that she had to run away and start a whole new life. In Season 3, Episode 5, Doing Time, we get a flashback to when she first opened up the school.
Where did I go wrong? With the opening of my new boating school, I pledge that as long as a student is willing to learn, I shall never give up.
Hi, I'm SpongeBob Squarepants.
With the opening of this new boating school, let's keep in mind that this is not her first boating school. Maybe the whole reason she's making this pledge now at her second school is because she gave up on a student at her previous school, and that led to her having to run away and start a new life.
So, the question is though, why is she set on being a boating school teacher? And if there was something that happened at the old one, why would you still want to be attached to... Somebody's at the door. Why would you still want to be attached to, boating school? Wouldn't you just do something different, like a laundromat, a grocery store, something different? But I do understand if you have your teaching credentials on a certain thing, this is what you know. You don't want to learn nothing new. But if I was trying to run away from my problems, I'm doing something completely different. I don't want you to associate with me with something that happened in the past. If I had a boating school incident, I'm not going to move to another city and start a new boating school, bro. I'm going to do something different. Y'all not about to have me attached to nothing else if I'm running away. People can reopen cases. I could still go to jail. She ain't thinking, bro. Come on now. I'm already passionate. It's almost 6 minutes in.
She's pledging to never make the same mistake again. Now let's skip ahead to one of the newer episodes. Season 12, Episode 21, Lighthouse Louie, where Mrs. Puff has SpongeBob organize all the stuff she keeps in the school's lighthouse. There's lots of interesting things hidden in the background, but the first thing that caught my eye was this file labeled Mrs. Puff.
Okay.
It makes sense for a teacher to have files on all their students, but why would she have a file about herself? But let's remember, she's not Mrs. Puff. That's a fake identity she created, and I'm willing to bet all of her fake identification documents are in this file. Back in No Free Rides, she just gives SpongeBob a license that she already had for him. So she clearly makes these licenses and would probably know how to make fake identifications. But that's not the only hint about Mrs. Puff's past in this lighthouse. There is something in here that directly confirms all of this. As SpongeBob swallows all of Mrs. Puff's junk, we see something very interesting for only a few frames. Deranged boat teacher makes getaway. 10 seasons later, and the creators are still hiding stuff about Mrs. Puff fleeing her old life. It might not look like it at first, but we actually get a ton of new information from this newspaper. This is from the New Kelp Post, which tells us...
She said, do you see the fine print at the bottom? It says distracts authorities with balloon animals. So when she said, I hope I could do this, I can still do this, she was making sure if she had to run away, she could do the same thing she did back then. You guys, oh my gosh. Wait, what's the date? Hold on. October 21st. I'm gonna remember that. You see that? Distracts authorities with balloon animals. When she blew up the balloon, bro, that's how she did it. This is a crazy frame of SpongeBob. The big fat meanie. I love the Easter eggs. Okay. Whoa.
Get a ton of new information from this newspaper. This is from the New Kelp Post, which tells us Mrs. Puff originally lived in New Kelp City. Then there's a caption that reads, distracts authorities with balloon animals. And do you remember that clip from the beginning?
Yes!
I hope I still remember how to
do you know I remember?
Yeah.
So whenever Mrs. Puff makes a getaway or commits a crime, she leaves behind a balloon animal to distract the police. I'm telling you guys, these writers don't just do stuff randomly, they have reasons for everything.
Yo!
And the most damning piece of evidence from this newspaper is actually the picture of Mrs. Puff. Kind of a strange photo, right? We have seen this exact same photo of her before. In the episode No Free Rides, when she imagines what would happen if SpongeBob got his license.
Local consensus places the blame on this negligent, selfish driving instructor.
This means that this isn't just her imagination of what might happen. This is also her remembering what happened when she lived in New Kelp City and prematurely gave one of her students a license. And I'm willing to bet that the fish reporting the news is the exact same one who reported about her in New Kelp City. Let me explain. We know from the episode Whatever Happened to SpongeBob that reporters from the Bikini Bottom News can also work for the New Kelp City News. But the real reason I think this is because of his hair. In the entire show, we have never seen this fish reporter with hair before. Why would the creators go out of their way to add that detail? Because Mrs. Puff isn't imagining him as he looks now. She's remembering him from years ago when he used to have hair, when he reported about her in New Kelp City.
So this reporter been knew Mrs. Puff, if that's your real name, which is not. She been doing this, and so he, oh my gosh, and wouldn't it be crazy if she got caught, he'd be the same one, and then he would have to mention years back that he already, I'm loud, but years back, bro already been knew. He been knew. Oh my gosh, this is why SpongeBob is a goated show. This is why SpongeBob is goated, because because they knew there's gonna be people like Alex, there's gonna be people like me that's gonna enjoy the little fine details in this junk. Oh my gosh, that's a crazy detail. Alex, you are killing it right now. Oh my god.
Mrs. Puff has been running from her past ever since, and is now forced to relive her experience with an unteachable student through SpongeBob. But reliving this trauma has pushed her to the point of complete insanity. And trust me when I say that you have no idea how delusional she actually is.
Ooh! The insanity of Mrs. Puff.
Another running gag throughout the series is Mrs. Puff's occasional nervous breakdowns or moments of insanity because of SpongeBob, and they get more severe as the show continues. At first she did care for SpongeBob, but in the newer episodes she literally tries to kill SpongeBob just to get him out of her life. Even SpongeBob just walking up to her gives her severe PTSD.
Hi, Mrs. Puff.
Hit the brakes! SpongeBob! Watch the tree! Laugh!
Wait, Mrs. Puff! We're not driving.
But these mostly seem like just one-off moments, and for the most part, Mrs. Puff is still a functioning member of society, right? I'm going to show you that she's actually much more insane and delusional than you may think. And some of the episodes she's in take place entirely in her own head. If we're talking about how insane Mrs. Puff is, there is no better place to start than the episode Doing Time. Once again, SpongeBob fails the boating test and causes destruction and chaos, which leads to Mrs. Puff going to jail. SpongeBob keeps breaking into jail to try and bust her out, but Mrs. Puff actually prefers being in jail over teaching him. We actually get another interesting line about Mrs. Puff's past in this episode.
Okay, you can do this, Puff. You can get through this without losing your sanity. Oh, that's a road we don't want to go down again.
So we know that Mrs. Puff has lost her sanity in the past, probably from her previous terrible student. But it seems like she's recovered since then, except in this episode she has a complete mental breakdown. SpongeBob keeps appearing in impossible places until she gets thrown into solitary confinement, where each wall of the room transforms into a giant SpongeBob face. And then the episode ends in a way that's so weird and confusing that it rivals the infamous gorilla episode ending. As Mrs. Puff freaks out, she's suddenly transported back into the beginning of the episode when SpongeBob was taking the test. Except this time, SpongeBob gets arrested instead of her.
Help! Help! No! This is not a good time! No!
I can't believe it. It was all a dream. I'm not going to jail.
Why would you go to jail? You already did your time.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I wonder if it's one of those things where you can't get tried for the same crime. And so it's like when they said you already did your time, I wonder if it was because of like you already committed a crime, you already did your time, right? Or if it's like the same situation happened again the exact same way, but SpongeBob actually went to jail and not her. Or she's just that crazy that she thought maybe I should go to jail. Or she was so like, not maybe I should go to jail, but she wanted to go to jail because she couldn't stand SpongeBob. Like, I hope I'm like making sense because oh my gosh, dude. Okay. Bruh.
Forget it.
So what's really going on in this episode? Was the ending all in her head? Is Mrs. Puff just caught in an endless loop? I think this entire episode is inside of Mrs. Puff's head, and she's actually on the outside the whole time, but she's been imagining herself inside of prison. I can explain. Listen closely to what the police officer tells Mrs. Puff.
I'm not going to jail.
Why would you go to jail? You already did your time.
Why would you go to jail? You already did your time. And then revealing she's still in a prison uniform despite being on the outside. So this scene is obviously inside of her head, which means everything we see is symbolic. And if we can understand the symbolism of it, we can understand what's really going on with Mrs. Puff. Notice how she's suddenly wearing a black and white striped prison uniform, even though the entire episode she's been wearing this orange jumpsuit. Why would the creators go to the extra effort to draw a whole new prison uniform for her? Well, we've seen her wear this black and white prison uniform before, the very first time she went to prison back in Season 1, Episode 7, Hall Monitor. So when the police officer says, "You've already done your time," he's referring to the first time she went to jail. But why is she still wearing that uniform outside of prison? Well, she may have gotten out of jail, but she was by no means free. Having to teach SpongeBob is a prison in itself, and she manifests that by believing she's in jail and wearing a prison uniform despite being on the outside. This entire episode, every time SpongeBob magically appears, is all inside of her head. She is completely delusional, and hints that she's experiencing these hallucinations don't stop there. Just 6 episodes later, she goes to a house party SpongeBob throws, and while everyone is talking and having a good time, in the background we see she's literally sitting by herself talking to an ice sculpture of SpongeBob.
You see how she's staring at it too? Oh my goodness, okay.
You can't tell me this isn't intentional. I mean, look at this. Now, back in the episode No Free Rides, there is a very strange picture inside of Mrs. Puff's home. It's a picture of Mrs. Puff inside of a picture of Mrs. Puff inside of a picture of Mrs. Puff, creating an infinite loop. This is something that has confused SpongeBob fans for years. But like everything in the show, there is a reason for it being there. One of the SpongeBob storyboard artists actually called it the biggest mystery in the entire show. If you think about it, this is just like the end of Doing Time, where she's stuck in an infinite loop of SpongeBob failing the driving test. Because it's all symbolic of what her life is, just an endless cycle of SpongeBob taking the test and failing, and no matter what she does to try and escape, she always ends up back in the same place at the end of the episode.
So, I'm just gonna say that SpongeBob has got to be the main culprit of this. He's gotta be the one that's controlling her, right? He's gotta be the one. He is the antagonist in her life, y'all. He's gotta be. As much as we love SpongeBob, he's the antagonist in a lot of people's lives on the show. And he know what he's doing. And I wonder why, and I could be completely off, y'all. I could be completely off. But I think he the problem. He intentionally fails on purpose. He likes to torture her. But why would he torture her? What did she do? What did she do for this man to continuously fail the same test over and over and over and over again? It's really not that hard to drive, for one. And you could cheat on these tests because a lot of these tests are common sense. What is the reason, SpongeBob, if he's the main one? Because the whole point of this theory is that somebody's controlling her and somebody's making her this crazy or whatever. I think it's SpongeBob. I think it's SpongeBob, y'all. He's the antagonist in this. I think so. And if I'm wrong, I'll be wrong. But it makes sense because a lot of this stems from him. I love this stuff.
So this picture is another symbolic manifestation of what she's feeling. We even see another one of these pictures all the way in Season 9, Episode 5, Bumper to Bumper. This is something that the show is consistently alluding to. Mrs. Puff is an unreliable narrator, and anything we see with her could potentially all be inside of her own head. In fact, I believe I found another episode that takes place inside of her head. In Season 9, Episode 17, SpongeBob Long Pants, SpongeBob goes to a different boating instructor and actually gets his license. But as soon as he does, we briefly cut to Mrs. Puff waking up.
You pass. I finally got my driver's license.
Lock your doors, bar your windows, it's the end of the world.
Now, this seems like it's probably just a throwaway gag where Mrs. Puff somehow senses that SpongeBob got his license and it causes her to wake up and freak out. You know, it's a good bit, it's funny, but I have a question. If the joke is that she's supposed to be waking up at the exact time SpongeBob gets his license, how come she wakes up at night when SpongeBob clearly gets his license during the day? Because this entire episode actually takes place inside of Mrs. Puff's head. And this is the only part of the episode in the real world.
I don't know what that was all about, but I'm glad it's over.
But let me pause for a second. I'm sure some of you are already wondering if this contradicts my previous SpongeBob video, The Television Theory. If you haven't watched that one, the gist of it is that the entire show is a documentary television show, and everything we see is actually being secretly filmed.
Remember that, y'all? Remember that one?
There's a ton of evidence to support it. I'm very proud of that video. You should definitely check it out. But if everything's supposed to be from a camera, then how are we seeing things from inside Mrs. Puff's head? In fact, how do we see dreams and flashbacks and thought bubbles? Well, I think the simple answer is that even though we view the show through an objective camera lens, the world itself still follows the rules of a cartoon.
You can never tell another living soul. Wait, hold on! What's that? My pen is out of ink. Plankton! You'll never get me formula, not even in a flashback.
In the world of SpongeBob, you can imagine something and other people can still see, record, or interact with it, because that's just how cartoons work. Back to the theory, we know that her insanity has caused her to live a life of delusion, but if you remember back to the Lighthouse episode, she's also become an extreme hoarder, and looking at her collection of junk is like a look directly into her mind, so there's gotta be something we can learn about her from it. There's a picture.
So, just a quick thing, you guys, because they say that your room reflects what's in your mind. So if your room is cluttered, that means your mind is cluttered. If your room is clean, that means your mind is clear. So make sure if your surroundings are messy, you guys, make sure you clean up and feel better about yourself, okay? Love ya! Mental health. We have a wellness check-in coming up real soon, you guys. So tune in for that. I know that I'm overdue, but yeah.
Of her boyfriend, Mr. Krabs, the hall monitor belt she gives her students, the mean drawings her students make her, SpongeBob's diary, a boating safety helmet. Wait, SpongeBob's diary?
Yeah!
Why does she have SpongeBob's diary? The last time we saw that, it was safely put away in SpongeBob's library. What's it doing in her lighthouse? And why does she have Squidward's painting? And a table from the Krusty Krab? And SpongeBob's bike? And Squidward's teddy bear? And the hair curlers Mr. Krabs had? And that statue of Squidward? And that diamond ring? And that crown? And that bucket of radioactive waste? And that jellyfish sign? Oh my god. Mrs. Puff is a kleptomaniac. Mrs. Puff has been stealing from everyone in Bikini Bottom. I can even prove that her pet snail from season 3 episode 19 was stolen.
My snail is up a tree.
Yeah, it wasn't even hers. It was some random pedestrian.
You've had that snail since you've been a little girl, huh? Then how come that is the exact same snail Squidward had 4 episodes ago in the Great Snail Race?
I wouldn't let Snelly here play with that mongrel mutt. She's a pure.
That's right!
She even has her own papers.
He even has her paperwork. Mrs. Puff clearly stole the snail from Squidward. But why the hell would Mrs. Puff steal all this other junk? What possible use could she have for any of it? We could find the answer to that question by looking at this green hat and this purple jacket. These were gifts Mr. Krabs bought her on their first date, but she ended up feeling uncomfortable receiving them and gave them back to him.
I'm afraid I just don't feel comfortable accepting all these gifts.
Except apparently she's not too uncomfortable to steal them back afterwards. So clearly Mrs. Puff isn't stealing this stuff because she wants to use it. She just steals for the thrill of it. Maybe stealing things is her way of coping with the insanity of her everyday life. And remember, this isn't the first time she's gone insane.
You can get through this without losing your sanity. Oh, that's a road we don't want to go down again.
Just checking in with you guys. Are you guys good? I know I have not been talking. I have been so invested in this because... Okay, let's rewind real quick. Comment down below, who the heck do you think is messing with her? Because I really think it's SpongeBob. Because why? Because why? Because why? And not only that, she just has a whole lot of different issues going on. She has mental issues. She has a criminal record. She likes to steal. She's a hoarder. What the heck is going on with Mrs. Puff? And was she ever really married? You guys!
In fact, I have reason to believe that she started stealing things way back whenever she first went insane.
I hope I still remember how to do this.
I don't think she's just talking about remembering how to make balloon animals. She's probably also referring to remembering how to steal a boat. And if that's not enough for you, in a SpongeBob comic book, she actually admits that she used to rob banks and she wears the exact same ski mask. Mrs. Puff lives a completely delusional and miserable life, all because she has to teach SpongeBob how to drive. It's led her to steal from the people she cares about and completely disassociate from reality. But that begs a very important question. If SpongeBob is causing her life to be so miserable, then why does she even keep teaching him?
Dude, okay, because people are insane, right? People are insane, right? And the other part of it is that Mrs. like, you know, teaching SpongeBob how to drive could be a figment of her imagination too. You ever thought about that too? Oh my god. No, you fell. Get back up there. You gotta watch the show. No, you guys are falling. Anyways, embarrassing. I wonder if SpongeBob is just a figment of her imagination too. Like she's just thinking this or something. Or that she just literally might be in an insane asylum and she's just thinking all this up. There's so many things that really, this theory is so big. And I know that he's gonna bring it on home and tie it up with a really crazy bow. But, you know, we gotta talk about it because what is wrong? What is wrong? Because people have mental issues to the point where they do imagine life for themselves, and it could be a span of 20 minutes, but in their mind it could be a span of 3 years, and we don't know that for sure because mental health is a crazy thing. People that are schizophrenic see the world so differently when you really think about it. They do. They see the world differently. So she could be schizophrenic too. She could be the main one that's torturing her. Who the heck knows? Mr. Puff could be the main one torturing her. She may not even be real. But who knows?
After all the destruction and pain he's caused, she'd totally be justified to expel him, right? I mean, she will literally try and kill him so she doesn't have to teach him, but for some reason she can't just expel him. It's almost like there's someone forcing her to teach SpongeBob.
Who's the mastermind, y'all?
Back to the episode No Free Rides. After prematurely giving SpongeBob a license, she steals his boatmobile so he can't hurt anyone. In the end, this causes her to get arrested and go to jail, but then SpongeBob tells her this.
And besides, the warden says she'll let you go early if you do her a favor.
What's that?
Free driving lessons!
She'll get to leave prison early if she gives free driving lessons. That seems like an oddly specific requirement. And that's not the only time this gets mentioned either. In Season 9, Episode 5, Bumper to Bumper, we get this scene.
If only SpongeBob could pass his boating test, he'd be out of my life once and for all. Unfortunately, I keep getting reminded of the consequences if I get too angry with the little nuisance.
Consequences? Are you telling me that if she refuses to teach SpongeBob specifically, she'll be violating her parole and get sent back to jail? Why does the prison even care if Mrs. Puff teaches SpongeBob? Is it just part of some weird community service? But things start to get really suspicious at the end of Season 7, Episode 5, Summer Job. Once again, Mrs. Puff ends up in jail, but this time she's...
Let me find out SpongeBob is messing with her. Free driving lessons, right? Right? He come and visit her after she got rid of him, but instantly regret it because he can't drive, right? Right? Okay. Steals the boat because she realized it's a grave mistake. This man is still tormenting her. She got rid of him, right? She got rid of him. And it still was messing with her, right? And he knew that it would. Because he's SpongeBob and he ain't stupid, right? And he knew that it would. She stole the boat. He didn't plan that, but I'm just saying. He go to visit her. He like, hey, you can get out. But you gotta get free driver's license. Because SpongeBob, the show's called SpongeBob Squarepants. The show's called SpongeBob Squarepants. That man has power, okay? The man has power. I'm spitting. Ew. That man has power. Right? He has power. Hold on. Because he has power and influence, he does good deeds for the community. Let's not negate the fact that that man is like the Elon Musk the Bikini Bottom, the Mr. Beast of the Bikini Bottom, bro. They just got power like that. You hear me? SpongeBob is Mr. Beast and Elon Musk because he simply has power like that. He is tormenting Mrs. Puff. He has to be, bro. He has to be the one.
Forced to go to a prison boating school.
Oh, wow! A driver's education class.
Good day, class.
Wow!
I must be having a nightmare. What's he doing here?
Dear Mrs. Puff, I'm following in your footsteps and got a job as a driver's ed teacher for the summer.
Who in their right mind would hire SpongeBob to do this after he's literally destroyed the city countless times while driving? Is this just another one of Mrs. Puff's delusions? Or is the prison intentionally forcing her to be around SpongeBob just to torture her? I mean, look at the way the guard forces her to sit there and listen to him.
Get the
And look at that evil smile he has as he watches her endure this torture.
Now, you guys, okay, because Mrs. Puff has such a criminal history, she could be in jail, right? This may be her punishment because she's done so many bad things. This could be her punishment, and they know how much she despises SpongeBob, so he could possibly either be in on it or not be at the same time, because he could simply just like Mrs. Puff, right? And want to be around her and stuff, and so they're just like, hey, you want to do this, you want to do that, because they want her to be tortured, or he and them are in cahoots and torturing her together, and he's just continuously trying to play up the part of bubbly, gullible, optimistic SpongeBob. He could just be playing the role. He could really just be really like Miss Puff, or he could be playing a role. And this is her punishment because of all her crimes and her criminal history, you guys. Y'all, dude, I'm over here. Oh my God.
There is something very strange going on with this prison. Then, in Season 10, Episode 8, The Getaway, Mrs. Puff meets a criminal named Dorsal Dan and starts to get romantic feelings for him. This is also while she's still dating Mr. Krabs. Shame on you, Mrs. Puff.
Period.
At the end of the episode, they both accidentally land in prison, and the warden puts him in solitary confinement.
Warden, I found this one pulling up outside the prison.
Dorsal Dan, a notorious getaway driver. Toss him in the clink.
I'll wait for you, my little tender boy.
In or out of jail, this prison will stop at nothing to make.
That's how y'all be looking? Y'all say y'all wait for people that done committed murder and stuff. Listen, the question's always raised. If I went to jail, would you wait for me? But what did you go to jail for, first of all? And what the heck you doing for you to end up in jail? And you want me to wait for you, bro? What are you doing to end up in jail? If you murdering people, bro, I'm sorry. But what are you doing to end up in jail for me to have to wait for you anyways? You want me to wait? You got 20 years? I'm supposed to wait for you for 20 years? You ain't gonna wait for me in 20 years. And who knows, you might dabble a little bit in the prison. You want me to wait for you, bro? I ain't waiting, bro. I'm sorry. And that's my final answer. So anybody, future husband, future boyfriend, if you're watching this right now, I will not wait for you. I will not wait for you. Because what are you doing to go to jail, bro? I'm not gonna wait for you. Sorry. Love ya. Mwah. Kisses.
In or out of jail, this prison will stop at nothing to make sure she is alone and miserable. But why? Who's behind all of this? Why would anyone care this much about torturing Mrs. Puff? Who's the mastermind pulling the strings? Well, maybe it has something to do with her old life in New Kelp City. Maybe she crossed someone and they've been plotting their revenge ever since. But I've looked in every single frame of New Kelp City, and there is nothing connecting it back to the prison. I've looked literally everywhere, and there's not a single person from the city that has anything to do with Mrs. Puff. Well, I mean, maybe except for the literal warden of the prison she's being kept in! He may be hiding slightly off screen, but that is clearly the same warden of the Bikini Bottom prison. And this isn't some random background character that the show reuses all the time. He is a very distinct character. You can call me out on the Squilliam video all you want, but not this time. But wait a second. If the warden was originally from New Kelp City, then he'd probably know about Mrs. Puff's dark past and her true identity. So why hasn't he exposed her? He's just kept quiet about the fact that one of his inmates is living a completely false identity. She'd probably even get more prison time when they find out who she really is, so why hasn't he said anything? This is where things get very interesting. So, we know Mrs. Puff prematurely gave a student at her original boating school a license, and that led to them causing chaos and destruction. Maybe this student accidentally did something terrible to the warden, and he's blamed Mrs. Puff ever since. Whatever happened was so terrible that it caused him to move to Bikini Bottom and get a job as the warden of the town's prison. And to his surprise, he finds out that one of his inmates is actually the person he blames for that terrible thing happening. This works out perfectly for him. He can finally get his revenge on Mrs. Puff by making her life miserable. All he has to do is reveal her dark secret, and she'll be stuck in jail for much longer. Except for one small issue with his plan. Mrs. Puff actually likes being in prison.
One day down, 2,528 to go. Oh, that's just shy of 4 years without SpongeBob. I'm going to enjoy this.
So, he comes up with a new plan. Keep Mrs. Puff secret and let her out of prison early, but only under the condition that she has to teach SpongeBob. He's literally turning her normal life into a prison. And he makes sure going back to prison to avoid SpongeBob isn't even an option for her anymore, because he'll make sure that SpongeBob is always in there with her. And he's not gonna let her escape and start a new life like she did in New Kelp City. He makes sure to give her an ankle bracelet that doesn't let her leave Bikini Bottom.
I can't even leave town without violating my parole.
He is the mastermind who's been controlling everything this entire time. But guess what? His insidious plan doesn't even end there. This is not the first time we've seen the Warden character. We first see him in Season 4, Episode 2, Crabs vs. Plankton. In this episode, Plankton slips on some water in the Krusty Krab and decides to sue Mr. Krabs for everything he owns. And then guess who shows up out of nowhere and offers to be Mr. Krabs'
Warden.
lawyer?
What I really need is a good lawyer.
Whoa, did somebody say lawyer? Richard A. Bottomfeeder, attorney at law. I couldn't help but notice that despicable display.
Richard A. Bottomfeeder, the warden of the Bikini Bottom prison, is also apparently a lawyer? That's kind of strange. Those both sound like major careers. You usually wouldn't imagine someone being both. Then he says he'll be Mr. Krabs' lawyer completely free of charge.
So, how much is this gonna cost me?
Actually, I won't charge a dime unless we win.
Well, that's awfully generous of you, Richard. He seems very confident that he can win the case, but right before he goes to court, he slips on some water and says SpongeBob will have to be Mr. Krabs' lawyer now.
Oh, this is gonna be a slam dunk.
Oh, no! Mr. Krabs' lawyer, speak to me!
Wrapped with pain, can't move. Looks like you're gonna have to handle this one, son.
He tells SpongeBob that he has to represent Mr. Krabs, even though he himself called SpongeBob a liability.
Actually, SpongeBob, we won't be needing any testimony from you. Why, you'd be more of a liability than an asset.
But it's okay, because apparently all SpongeBob needs to win is inside of Richard's briefcase.
Everything you need to win is in this here case.
Really? Everything?
Except when SpongeBob gets to court, he realizes that Richard never gave him the combination to the case.
It's, all in here.
Really?
Yep, right in here.
Is there a problem?
Your lawyer didn't give me the combination.
Either Richard A. Bottomfeeder is the worst lawyer in history, or this is all part of his elaborate plan to ruin Mrs. Puff's life. Here's what I think happened. First, he finds out that Mr. Krabs is being sued, and he wants to ensure that Mr. Krabs loses the case because he wants to destroy any chance Mrs. Puff has at finding love. So he pretends to be a lawyer, even offering his services for free, something Mr. Krabs can't resist.
You guys, my head is spinning, okay? Let me just check in with you. No! You're having so many issues with those posters, you guys. So many. So many. It's embarrassing. I'm gonna have to put it up. It's the Hunter Hunter one this time. Why is the Hunter Hunter one falling? It's usually the Demon Slayer one, bro. Recently, it's been Attack on Titan. Ah! Like I was saying, broskies. All this because Mrs. Puff was a criminal. All this because she was a criminal. Bro wanna go to the extent of all this because she's a criminal. I've seen shows with wardens, and I wouldn't put it past a warden. When a warden doesn't really like a prisoner like that, bro, they will go to the lengths. My sister says I sound crazy. I do. The wardens will go to the extreme lengths when they don't like a prisoner. So I get it. I get it. But still, to the point where you play as a lawyer. You ain't really a lawyer to begin with. You so happen to slip on water, right? And then all of a sudden, you gotta let SpongeBob, who is your favorite person to torture Miss Puff with, be the lawyer. SpongeBob ain't no lawyer. So if SpongeBob becomes a lawyer, he can lose the case, and Mr. Krabs and Mrs. Puff don't get to interact with each other because they actually like each other. In fact, love each other. You're crazy, Warden. And if you're the one, and if your only reason is because of Mrs. Puff's criminal history, I get it. But you like a weirdo. And I don't know, you don't sit right with me. Now, look at your haircut. Look at them shoes, clearly too big, so you compensating for something. And your bow tie stupid, bro. Your bow tie's stupid. With them caterpillar eyebrows, bro. You suck.
He makes Mr. Krabs feel confident that they're gonna win the case, and then at the last second, he pretends to get into an accident so he can't represent Mr. Krabs. Instead of finding a real lawyer to replace him, he tells the most incompetent person for the job, SpongeBob, that he has to be Mr. Krabs' lawyer. And he gives him a case that allegedly has all the answers in it without actually giving SpongeBob the combination, setting him up for a total failure in court. Richard A. Bottomfeeder refuses to let anyone get close to Mrs. Puff. Not Dorsal Dan, and not Mr. Krabs. This guy has squillion levels of hate for Mrs. Puff.
Yes, he does!
What exactly did her previous student do that warrants this much torture? It can't be something as simple as him or his property getting damaged. It has to be something life-changing. Something like losing a loved one because of the student's reckless driving. And I think the show gives us one last hint about who this might have been. All the pictures of Mrs. Puff's house are very meaningful to her. She's got photos of Mr. Krabs, her pet snail, and of course those infinitely looping photos that told us so much about her mental state. But there is one more photo in this house that might be the key to this entire conspiracy. In season 12, episode 14, Plankton's Old Chum, we see a photo of someone we've never seen before on Mrs. Puff's wall. There's some surprising similarities between this character and Richard. The green color, the red bow tie, the overall fancy, serious appearance. It clearly isn't the same person, but maybe this is someone related to Richard, like a father, a son, or a brother that Mrs. Puff's former student killed. And the reason she keeps a photo of him up is to have a permanent reminder to never make the same mistake of giving someone a license who doesn't deserve it. Mrs. Puff is a boating school teacher who once made a terrible mistake that led to the loss of her business, identity, sanity, and any chance at finding happiness. I like to think that there used to be a time when she was happy, back when her husband was still alive. If only he was still around today, maybe she wouldn't have to face all of this on her own. Thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. Is what I would say if I was done, except her husband is still alive.
I knew it!
Let's do this.
I knew
In the
it!
SpongeBob movie, SpongeBob and Patrick travel to a gift shop named Shell City that's full of dead fish turned into knickknacks and ornaments. Except they end up setting off the smoke detector, which activates the sprinkler system and brings all the dead fish back to life, including a very familiar looking pufferfish hanging from the ceiling. Mr. Puff is alive. Well, wait a second. If he's alive and he escaped, then why hasn't he gone back to Mrs. Puff? Why is she still alone? Because remember, she ran away from their home in New Kelp City and started a new identity. So sadly, Mr. Puff has no way of finding her. The tragedy of Mrs. Puff's story is that her happiness is just a city away, but she can never even leave town because that would violate her parole. Richard A. Bottomfeeder probably even knows her husband is alive and is making sure they're never reunited. As the name says, Richard really is a bottom feeder. This video took a ton of time and effort to do all the research for, so I really hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching.
You guys, my head is spinning. First of all, let's clap it up for Alex Bale. Thank you, man, because your content is giving me life and it's giving my Sunflower Gang. You're giving us life right now. So if you ever see this, bro, I want to personally thank you for your content because we're on number 3 and I gotta watch number 4. Thank you so much for watching, y'all. Oh my goodness, this theory is crazy. It's actually kind of sad, but it just goes to show. But y'all, just make sure y'all don't do nothing crazy, for one. But 2, yo, I just can't imagine my life being that torturous because of a crime I committed. You know what I mean? You are so mad at me and down bad. My lover is in the next city over. He probably kissing on and hugging on another chick, and I'm over here alive and well and breathing. I'm a puffer fish and he probably snuggling up with an anchovy, bro. But because I committed a crime, you want to keep me from my man? Ugh, man, I'm taken back. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I really like the SpongeBob theories. They are so fun, and it's because I really adore that show. I really do. I love cartoons, bro. The joke is so, oh god. If you guys are ready for the next video, next cartoon conspiracy, comment down below if you want another SpongeBob one. Comment down another cartoon one you guys want me to go over and anything. Y'all, I'm enjoying myself and I hope you guys are too. But before we part ways, I need you to like, comment, share, subscribe, and turn that bell so you know when I post, because Mrs. Puff, you know, hey, you know, she, you know what I mean? She might got a little something going on with her, but it is what it is, y'all. I'm talking a lot. I'm so energetic. I've had a good time, but thank you so much for watching, y'all. And y'all be willing, I will see you all in the next video. Shalom. I love y'all. Yeah!
Ugh.